Welcome to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm Dr. Kelly Livingston, a naturopathic physician and your guide to a new health reality, one that connects body, mind, and spirit. Together, we'll dive deep into the art and science of holistic healing. Through working with hundreds of women through midlife transitions, I've discovered something profound. Most of our physical and emotional challenges are rooted in a maladaptive stress response. And true healing begins when we regulate our nervous system. Each episode will explore complex health topics in simple, empowering ways, uncover the deeper wisdom within each of us, and share practical tools for nervous system regulation to help you awaken your vital force and create lasting wellness. So, if you're ready to reconnect with yourself, your health, and your purpose, let's begin this journey together so you can experience life more fully human and deeply healed. Hi, and welcome back to the Vital Spirit podcast. I'm Dr. Kelly Livingston, and today I want to start with a simple question. It's something that many of my patients have maybe lost touch with when they first start working with me, and I love to bring us back to this question as we work together in the beginning. And that is, what would you do if you got sick tomorrow and you didn't have access to urgent care or antibiotics or over-the-counter medications? As a real question, what would you do? Would you panic? How well do you have an at-home medicine cabinet stocked? Are you familiar with understanding what your body's doing when you get sick? These are the things that I want you to think about as we start today. Because for most of human history, that was reality. And even now, your body hasn't changed. It still knows exactly what to do. We talked all about that in the Vis Medicatrix Naturae episode, right? The problem is that we've lost the ability to recognize what it's doing. And instead, we panic, we suppress, we reach for an antibiotic, right? We often interrupt what our body is trying to do. And then we wonder, why did this sickness linger? Why am I getting sick all the time? Why is it recurring? Why is it never fully resolving? And so what I want to do in this episode is teach you how to see acute illness differently, not as something to fight, not irresponsibly, but as something to understand. And I want you to think about your body's response to an acute illness as something to support in real time. Because when you understand what's happening in your body and why you're having symptoms, your entire response changes, and then the trajectory of your illness changes. So essentially, I want to impart on you here today some of the tools and some of the ways of thinking around illness that I would explain to a patient when they first start working with me. Because imagine if we've worked on the gut-brain axis, for example, and then that person gets a sinus infection and they want to know, okay, what am I going to do for this that doesn't involve wrecking the work I did on my gut health and my microbiome? How do I handle this acute illness? Because as we're working on the seeds of health and as we're working on vitality, we might still get sick, right? So let's start here. Start in your mind to imagine that moment when you begin to feel like you're getting sick. Most of us have a pattern, so you might be prone to sore throats when you get sick, or sinus infections, or you might get a wet cough. So just start thinking about that. Maybe you have a scratchy throat, or you're feeling run down and tired. Maybe you get that sense that you have a little bit of a chill, something's off, maybe a fever's starting. And most people go right into, okay, what should I take? How can I stop this? And that's actually probably the wrong first question to ask. The first question to ask is, what is my body starting to do? Because acute illness is not random. It follows a sequence. We've talked about this before. And that sequence is organized by something we call the Vis Medicatrix Naturae, the healing power of the body. Your immune system is not reacting, it's initiating a response. So in that early phase, before symptoms fully arrive, before you're actually laid out sick, high fever, your body is already shifting physiology. and energy is being redirected. We've talked about this before when we've talked about the cell danger response, right? So inflammatory signaling is beginning to mount in the body. We're recruiting all of our immune cells. Your nervous system is shifting. Your metabolism is adjusting. We're not going to focus on some of the daily life activities within our cells and within our systems that our body might normally be focused on. We're going to redirect that energy to deal with the illness or the germ that's come into our terrain. Because remember, it's not just about killing the germ, it's about supporting the body and its process in responding to that germ. So that low energy or fatigue you feel at the beginning of an illness, it's not your body being weak or not strong enough. It's your body withdrawing energy from non-essential processes to prepare for immune activation. So the very first intervention is not a supplement or an over-the-counter or a homeopathic remedy, although very soon after what I'm about to mention, I certainly might start with a homeopathic and herbs and strategies, but it's really behavioral alignment with that physiology. So, what do I mean by that? And this is where most patients miss the boat at the beginning of an illness, and then they call and they say, the illness has come over me. What do I do now? But instead of matching with what's going on with our body, many times patients have been overriding that symptom or pushing through or staying up late, keeping on working or going to school if they're younger, maybe drinking caffeine and ignoring that signal. So, as always, part of our work is to start to get really good at noticing shifts, knowing when we're feeling run down and not overriding that response. Because when we're pushing through and overriding, we're forcing the body to work harder to do what it was already trying to do. So, the first principle of acute care at home is this: do not oppose the direction of the body. So, what does that look like? It looks like the moment you feel run down, or as if you're coming down with something, canceling what you can, creating space for your immune system to do what it's meant to do, reducing inputs, hydrating, warming the body, resting before your body forces you to rest. And I know this sounds really simple, but it is really one of the things that patients struggle with. And in part, it's because we've been raised in this paradigm of I'll just grab something to suppress the symptom once it gets bad enough. And we tend to only listen when we have to instead of before we have to. And if we're able to listen before we have to, then this is where simple tools like water as medicine and herbs and food as medicine can really profoundly shift the trajectory of your illness. And then you're not going to be knocked out for weeks at a time. So I want to slow this down a little bit because this is where I think some depth can come into just a simple acute sickness. So let's think about a very simple recommendation of drink more water, be hydrated when you're coming down with something. Well, hydration is not just about drinking fluids, right? It's about supporting circulation in the body, our lymphatic flow. Your lymphatic system is going to take care of this infection that you're coming down with. Water is important for hydrating our mucosal membranes, for temperature regulation, and for detoxification pathways. So warm fluids in particular are going to change the entire physiology of your body. They will increase peripheral circulation and support sweating. They will help relax your nervous system, improve immune cell movement to the area that those immune cells need to go to. So a simple phrase like drink more water or drink tea or lemon water when you're sick has really deep, profound physiological impacts. And sometimes we skip that step, right? And we just reach for something to suppress the symptom. So when I say something like drink ginger tea or chamomile or warm lemon water or broths and soups when we're sick, there's way more intentionality and direct contribution to immune response than we tend to even think. So, for example, Ginger, and by that I mean fresh ginger root, is not just soothing, it's really warming to the body. It's going to support circulation. It's going to enhance digestion so that when you divert some of your energy to dealing with whatever infection is coming your way, your body's getting some digestive support at the same time. It's going to move stagnation. It is antimicrobial. So just the simple act of slicing up fresh ginger root in warm water, the moment that you start to feel like you're coming down with something, can profoundly shift the trajectory of that illness. Now, if you had already been working with me as a patient, you might be having ginger tea every day like I do, and that might be part of preventing the illness from happening in the first place. Similarly, chamomile tea is not just calming tea, it's anti-inflammatory, it supports the nervous system, it helps your body to relax and shift into that parasympathetic state, your rest, digest, and heal, which is going to be key if you're coming down with something, right? So already we're not just drinking tea, we're choosing actions that match the physiology that our body needs. So now also in this phase is where hydrotherapy becomes incredibly powerful because water is not just hydration. Water is not just a vehicle for teas and tinctures, but it's actually a mechanism of circulation. So we can use water to help our body pump essentially. And we can use different temperatures of water as information to the body. So something like a warm bath is not just relaxing, it's increasing blood flow, supporting lymphatic movement and detoxification, encouraging sweating, reducing muscular tension that you might be feeling as you're coming down with something, and it's signaling safety to the nervous system. And then when we layer in something like Epsom salts, which I buy in bulk and I have next to my bath, and if you've ever worked with me as a patient, you've gotten my Epsom salt bath handout. So now we're layering in Epsom salts right at the first sign of coming down with something, and we're adding in magnesium support and relaxation. We're adding in the warmth of the water in addition to the magnesium content of the Epsom salt bath to relax and soothe our muscles. Additional layer of nervous system support there, right? Additional layer of sweating and increasing body temperature to kill off what's trying to grow. And so you might be shifting a little bit in how you think about an infection or coming down with something, because what I'm describing is not aggressive, right? It can be really gentle and subtle, but this is where the foundation of acute care lives. And this is why a lot of the women that I work with end up asking if I see kids. And I do see children, especially once I had my daughter over 10 years ago now. I started seeing even more kids in my practice because a lot of these gentle therapies can not only prevent illness, but resolve illness a lot more quickly. And once you get comfortable with using these tools at home and addressing acute care at home, it can be so amazing for your entire family. So yes, I'm often educating patients, especially moms, on how to do this at home with their kids. So before we're even grabbing herbs or homeopathy or supplements, we are asking, is the terrain ready to respond? How can I work with and shift my immune system and terrain to address whatever I'm coming down with? So first, we do ask the questions of, is our body dehydrated? Let's get some hydration into that system. Is it overstimulated or sleep deprived or dysregulated? Did I have a major stressor and then all of a sudden I got sick? You can give all the remedies in the world, but again, if we're dehydrated, if we're not sleeping, if our nervous system's not in a rest, digest, heal state, those remedies aren't going to land as well and we're going to get sicker. So in this early phase where you're just starting to come down with something, or maybe everyone in your family has something and you want to prevent yourself from coming down with something, it's all about knowing where the body is, matching up with the body's shift in that moment, supporting that shift, and creating the conditions for the immune system to do its job. Now, let's say this is a really potent experience and the infection progresses to a more active phase, which again, as we work together, we're trying to prevent that from happening, but sometimes we're going to get sick. And this is where patients start to get uncomfortable, especially when there is a fever, because now symptoms are more obvious. Some of us are more prone to having fear around those symptoms, and sometimes we're uncomfortable. So now maybe we do actually have an acute active fever. Maybe we do have some congestion and body aches, and we're even more tired. So, this is often the moment where people think, okay, something's wrong. I'm sick. Very often, this is when patients will call me. And sometimes I'm just reminding them about some of these very simple tools to start using. And sometimes we're moving a little bit further into more aggressive protocols. In reality, this is where the body is doing its most important work because your immune response, whether it's sneezing and expelling mucus or coughing or having GI upset and a fever, this is the body taking what is going on and working to resolve the situation and get back to homeostasis. So, in part two, we're going to go more deeply into what a fever is doing and how can we support a fever response. We're going to talk more about hydrotherapy and how your at-home natural medicine cabinet actually comes into play. But for part one, I want you to remember that you don't have to wait until you're really, really sick to start supporting your body. You don't have to reach for a symptom suppressing agent because the symptom that your body is exhibiting, whether it's a fever, whether it's fatigue or congestion, is your body's innate natural immune response starting to work and do what it needs to do to resolve it. So the more that we interfere with that, the slower the healing process will be. And sometimes that chronic suppression is actually what leads to chronic disease. So we don't begin with force. We begin with aligning with the body, with asking, what is the body asking for from me? Have I been watering my seeds of health? Or is one of those maybe why I got sick? Maybe I have not been hydrating. I have not been sleeping. I have not been working on my mindfulness and I'm really stressed out. And that's why I'm more susceptible. So in this next part, we're going to go in more depth, walking through exactly what I would do as symptoms intensify, including how to work with fever, how to use that hydrotherapy more specifically. I'll go into herbs and homeopathy to have in your at-home medicine cabinet and how to move through an acute illness without suppressing it. And I want to say that the reason I am making this episode two parts and really not diving into what do you have at home, what herbs do we use, what foods do we use, how do we use water, how do we use homeopathy in this episode is because I really want you to just sit and think about how you've historically responded to getting sick. And again, I think moms are a great example of when they first start to work with me and the first time that their kid is sick, or maybe they get a sinus infection after I've given this example before, where after the gut brain axis work, they're getting acutely sick and they have that moment of fear or panic or wanting to override the system. And so I really want this initial episode to just be a reframe of my body is smart, it's intelligent, it's organizing to respond to something. What can I do to support that process versus what can I take to stop it? So I'm going to stop there. And in part two, we're going to dive into all of the things that you're actually going to do as this sickness potentially gets worse and your symptoms really need even more support. Because sometimes we do use natural remedies to turn off essentially a symptom or to help you feel better. But first things first is not looking at the response of the body as a bad thing and learning how to say, okay, what does it need? How can I take a step back and work with my body instead of overriding it? So I'll see you next week where we dive even deeper into what to do at home acutely. Have a great day.